So we have UCS ports. So we call server ports the ports which are connected to the IOM modules from the fabric interconnector. We call them as a server ports. So we call uplink ports the ports connected to the Ethernet switch. So we call them as an uplink ports. FC uplink ports or FC ports, the ports connected to the FC switch or a SAN switch, which we call them as an FC uplink ports. So we also call unified ports connected to the unified switch. So the upstream unified switch which is connected to the, which we call as an unified ports of it. So we have a blade chassis. The blade chassis is having the IOMs and having the blade servers. So we have a fabric interconnector. So we have 2204 IOM model. We have 5108 blade chassis. So we have B222 M3 blades. So the blades are internally connected to the IOM. The blades are internally connected to the IOM. And from IOM, there are two cables which are connected to the fabric interconnector. So this is my fabric interconnector, which is 6248. So which is having a 32 ports, fixed ports, which are unified ports. So from here we have a connectivity to the Ethernet switch, which is 1 gig speed. So from here we have a connectivity to the FC switch. So which is my FC switch, which is connectivity to this particular one of it. So port number 1, 2 are server ports. That means that these two particular ports are connected to the IOM module. Port number 5 is connected to the uplink port, which is connected to the Ethernet switch. Port number 7, which is connected to the FC switch, which is called as an FC uplink port. We have a management port. The management port is connected to the Ethernet switch and we are going to assign an IP address called as 192.168.2.250, through which we are going to manage the Cisco UCS environment. And we have a console cable. This console cable is connected to one of this machine, where we are going to access this machine, which is called as an 192.168.2.11, 221. So remotely I am connecting to this machine. From there I am connected to the console port of this particular fabric interconnector, and we are going to do the initial configuration of it. So as soon as we connect the fabric interconnector to the console port, and when we power on for the first time, we see the enter the configuration method, either in a console or a graphical user method. So when we use a console, means it is a command line. When we use GUI, means it is a graphical. It is going to ask you the IP address for the fabric interconnector, and through the browser we can access the configuration wizard and we can configure it. So let's go to the console. So then it is asking me whether to set up the fabric interconnector, new fabric interconnector, or you want to restore from the backup. So as of now we are setting up the new fabric interconnector. So I'm just selecting code as a setup. So we are choosing to set up a new fabric interconnector. Yes. So as this is a new fabric interconnector, I'm saying code as an yes. And enforce a strong password. So we have a user account called as an admin. So if you enforce a strong password, it will maintain 9 letters. So I would say 9 characters, which require a capital, which requires 1 numerical key, which requires 1 special character minimum. But here I'm saying that no, I don't want an enforce a strong password. So now it is asking for the password for the admin user account. Now whatever the password which you set, it is going to change the password for the admin user account. Confirm the password. Now when we have two fabric interconnectors connected each other, and if we want to configure the clustering, then we can select yes. As in our environment we have only one single fabric interconnector, we are saying code doesn't no, I don't want to set up the fabric interconnector of it. So just click on no. Now this is the name of the fabric interconnector, like how Windows operating system will have a computer name. Okay, similarly the fabric interconnector will have the device name. So I'm just giving it code as an AL F5A, which is the one of it. So physical switch management IP address. So what is the management port IP address here now? So we are deciding that 192.168.2.15 is the management port IP address. So I'm just configuring the management port IP address as 192.168.2.250, which is the management port IP address, and physical switch subnet mask. .2.1 is the gateway of it. So configure the DNS server. So as of now I don't want to configure any DNS server IP address and the domain name. So join centrally management UCS centralized management. So there is another software called as an UCS Central, where we can manage the multiple fabric interconnectors or the UCS manager applications. Okay. So as of now I don't want to make this part of that. So I'm just saying no. Now it's going to ask me that switch the fabric interconnector A, system name AL FIA, and for strong password no, whatever the information which we gave, is that correct or do you want to modify it? So I'm just saying yes. So it is going to save the configuration. Now the fabric interconnector got initialized. So this is the list of steps which we perform when we initially want to configure the fabric interconnector. So I'm just saying code is login with the admin account and the password. Now we are able to see code doesn't the login to the fabric interconnector environment. So let's reboot the system for a minute. So login to connect to the local system and issue a command called as a reboot. It is going to reboot the fabric interconnector so that the new configuration will get reflected. Right. So we have initially configured the UCS fabric interconnector and we have rebooted. Now just go to the browser, type the IP address. So open the browser. So after the initial configuration of the fabric interconnector, type the IP address of the fabric interconnector. So click on launch UCS manager. So it requires a Java 1.6 and above. So log into the UCS manager using the admin user account. So when we log into the UCS manager, we see equipment. So we see the servers where we would see the LAN, SAN, this thing. Go to the equipment. For the first time when we configure the fabric interconnector, we are seeing only fabric interconnector. Okay, we are not able to see the blade chassis. So because we didn't configure any settings. The first and foremost step which we need to do is so we need to configure the ports. So as per this diagram, port number 1 to 2 are connected to the IOM, which we call them as a server ports. So go to the UCS manager application, select the fabric interconnector, select the port number 1, and they call it configure as a server port. Select the port number 2 as server port. So once you configure these particular ports as a server ports, then the fabric interconnector UCS manager application will go to the IOM and will try to understand what blade chassis is available and what blade servers are available and all the components of the chassis. Now we can see that now we are getting a chassis 1. Still it is under the, we can say coordination, basically in the in progress of inventorying it. So now still we are not able to see the servers. Still it is basically recognizing the chassis and acknowledging the chassis. So now we are able to see the servers, the blade server 7, the blade server 8. Still it is in the discovery process. We can see that it is discovering it. So like this, we need to configure all the server ports which are connected to the blade chassis. The next step which we need to do is configure the Ethernet switch port. So in our diagram, we see that the 5th port number is connected to the Ethernet switch. So I'm going to configure 3, 4, 5, 6 as Ethernet outside coordination uplink ports, but in that 5th port is connected to the Ethernet switch. So the Ethernet switch is 1 Gbps speed. So I'm going to the fabric UCS manager application, port number 3, right click, configure as an uplink port. Port number 4, configure as an uplink port. Port number 5, configure as an uplink port. Port number 6, configure as an uplink port. Go to the port number 5 which is connected to the Ethernet switch. As this is connected to the upstream Ethernet switch which is of 1 Gbps. So we need to set the speed as 1 Gbps. Okay. If the upstream switch is a unified switch which is 10 Gbps, then we can set coordinate 10 Gbps as the default. But in our environment, as the upstream Ethernet switch is 1 Gbps, so we are setting coordinate 1 Gbps. Now we can see that this particular port is being up and running. Now we have from 7th port, the 7th port is being connected to the FC switch. So we need to configure this particular port as an FC uplink port, which is that. Go to the fabric interconnector, select the fabric interconnector, right click, go to the unified ports. So when you go to the unified ports, so the fabric interconnector is going to reboot when we modify the ports from a unified to the FC uplink or FC uplink to the unified ports. So by default all these 32 ports are unified ports. Now we have to make them these ports as an FC uplink ports. Simply drag this bar. Now down we can see FC uplink port. It means that these ports will purely work for FC protocol, and these ports cannot be connected to the Ethernet switches. If you want to connect to the Ethernet switch or to the IOM, then that port should be basically called as a unified port of it. So I'm just selecting the till port number 7 to the 32 as an FC uplink ports. Just say yes, and the fabric interconnector will get reboot of it. So again type the login to the UCS manager application. So we define the basically called as FC ports till here. So we need to create the network resources. So in our environment, so we have VLAN 2, VLAN 3, VLAN 4, VLAN 5, which are pre-existing in my environment, which are configured in the layer 3 switch. So what I'm going to do is, so we are going to create or present these VLANs to the fabric interconnector here. And I'm going to create port number 3 and 4, which is uplink port. We'll combine these two ports into a single called as a port channel. So I'm going to the UCS manager application. So first what we are trying to do, we are going to present the VLANs. So I'm just going to the LAN section. So I'm just selecting the fabric interconnector again. I'm just selecting the VLANs, create VLANs. So I'm just giving the VLAN name, VLAN 2. I'm saying common or a global fabric interconnector again. I'm just selecting that this VLAN will be available only for fabric interconnector again. If I select a common or a global means that VLAN will exist for both fabric interconnectors. So I'm just selecting the VLAN 2 and just say OK. So I'm creating a VLAN 3 fabric interconnector A and VLAN 3 so I'm creating a VLAN underscore 5. So whatever the physical VLANs which are existing there, so we have presented the VLANs to the Cisco Ucs so that we can use these VLANs to the blade servers with the adapters. Now just for purpose of port channel, so we are going to group the port number 3 and port number for a port channel so that we can get the aggregation of the bandwidths. So I'm going to the fabric interconnector again, port channels. I'm just creating a port channel. So I'm giving a port channel ID as 2. I'm giving it called as an Ethernet port channel. So I'm just selecting the port number 3 and port number 4 and adding it to the port channel, and we created a port channel. So nothing but we are combining the port number 3 into 4 into one single port so that we give the aggregation of bandwidth. So I'm going to use port number 6 for pin grouping purpose, so that I want to dedicate that particular port for the one of the blade server Ethernet laptop. So I'm going to the pin group. I'm just creating a pin group. I'm just saying quotation blade 8 for exchange, or I would say quotation Hyper-V purpose. I'm selecting a fabric interconnector A. I'm going to the uplink ports, and I'm going to dedicate the port number 6 for the port channel pin group purpose. Now this is how we configure the port channels and VLANs which we present, and the LAN pin groups which we use. So when we are creating a service profile, we are going to use all these resources there. Now we want to configure the storage resources. So where we have what is a vSANs, the port channels, and the pin group of it. So in our environment, so we have what is a vSAN 1, comma vSAN 2, comma vSAN 3, comma vSAN 4, and we have what is a vSAN 5. So I'm going to create port channel combining the port number 9 and 10 for FC port channel. So I'm going to dedicate port number 11 as a pin group of it, so that we can use for one of the HP adapter on the blade servers. So I'm going to the Cisco Ucs Manager application, go to the SAN section. So I'm going to the fabric interconnector here. So I'm just selecting the FC uplink interfaces. Already we can see the port number 7 is FC uplink post, so I don't need to do that. Go to the vSANs, create vSANs. So vSAN 2, get the FCY VLAN. This FCY VLAN should not conflict with the Ethernet VLAN. So we presented all the vSANs in the fabric interconnector environment. I'm going to the port channel, FC port channels. So I'm going to create a port channel, called as a 3. I'm saying called as FC underscore port channel. So I'm going to combine the port 9 and 10 as a port channel. So I'm going to create a pin group, SAN pin group, for a I would say for this blade 8 underscore FC pin group. So I'm dedicating the port number 11 for the FC pin group of it. Now we have integrated the Cisco fabric interconnected environment or UCS environment with Ethernet and as well as FC environment and the blade chassis. So we have integrated from fabric into the blade chassis. Now we are able to see all the blade chassis in the UCS environment, and we have presented all the VLANs which are available in the Ethernet to the UCS environment, so that VLANs can be used to present to the blade servers, and we integrated the fabric integrator with the vSANs or Ethernet FC switch environment, where we would see the storage should be able to communicate with the blade servers. Now we have established a communication from fabric integrator to the Ethernet, from fabric integrator to the FC switch, and from fabric integrator to the blade chassis circuit. Now the next thing which we need to do for design, creating the resource pools. So this resource pools, so we have UID, MAC address, WWNN, WPN, and IP pools. So I'm going to the server, go to the pools, so create a UID pool. The UID is nothing but a motherboard identification, which we can use it for assigning to the blade server. So I'm creating a UID pool. So we'll have a prefix part, we have a suffix part. The prefix is the organization ID, which is the manufacturer OEID, and suffix, whatever we want to have it, we can have it. So I'm just giving it here for design, acute lung underscore VUID. So I'm just saying what is the prefix, derived, and I mean by derived means take from the hardware vendor. So sequentially assign the UID sequentially, go to the add, number of UIDs which you want to create, you can create number. So I'm just changing those one so that it has uniqueness across the fabric integrator environment. Now when we go to the pool, go to suffixes, we see that it is created 30 UID for suffixes with data which can be used for assigning to the blade server. So we are going to the LAN. So I'm creating a MAC pools. So now we require a MAC pool to assign the MAC address to the Ethernet adapters for the HP blade, for the blade servers. So I'm just creating a MAC pool. So I'm giving acute LAN underscore MAC pool. So we are giving what is a sequential, so that we can assign this one sequentially. And the number of MAC addresses which are required, I'm just giving it for this 9, so that we have uniqueness. I'm giving to 30 MAC addresses which we were required. Just finish it up. Now we can require an IP pools. The IP pool is required for management IP address of the blade server. So when we want to access the blade server using the KVM, okay, so it needs one IP address. So we are going to create a pool of IP addresses so that we can use the service profile for allocating to the blade. So I'm giving acute LAN underscore IP pool. So I'm giving sequencer. So I'm giving 30 IP addresses. I'm giving a default gateway called 192.168.2.1. Now here we will be able to see that it has created a pool of IP addresses from 180 to the 210, which is 30 IP addresses. Similarly, we see that it has created a MAC addresses, all the 30 MAC addresses serially from this particular section. Now go to the SAN. So here we require a WWNN pool to assign the WWNN to the HP adapter, and we require a WWPN to assign to the HP port adapter, port identification. Create a pool. So I'm giving acute LAN underscore WWNN pool. So I'm just selecting the sequencer. So I'm just changing this character so that it has uniqueness, so that it does not conflict with another UCS environment. Now here we can see that it has created the whatever the 30 or 40 numbers of this one. Now go to the PN pools, create a WWNN pool. Sequencer. So now we created all the pools which are required for the blade servers. we need all this for that. So now let's understand the my requirement is so I want blade 7 to get the UID from the pool. Should have 2 Ethernet adapters. And the first Ethernet adapter NIC 0 should be part of VLAN 2, which is native VLAN. NIC 1 should be part of VLAN 3, and both the Ethernet adapters should connect to the fabric interconnector A. And we have 3, so we need 2 HBA adapters which are going to connect to the fabric interconnector A, and HBA 0 will be part of a vSAN 2, and HBA 1 also will be part of vSAN 2. Then I need a local hard disks to be configured as basically called as a RAID 0, and I want the boot order should be the first boot device should be CD-ROM drive, the second boot device should be the local hard disk, the third boot device could be of network. So and this Ethernet adapter should get the MAC address from the MAC pool. It should get the MAC address from the MAC pool, and this HV adapter should get the WNN and WPN from the WNN and WPN pool. And we see WNN and WPN pool. Okay. This is how we are going to see called as a network of it. Okay. Then we need a management IP address. Okay. So this is what our requirement for blade 7. So I have a blade 8. My requirement is in here. The NIC 0 adapter, which is having a VLAN 2, should be part of basically called as a port channel, which we created called as an Ethernet port channel. So it should always take the particular port. And the NIC 1, which we created for here, this should be part of the basically called as a pin group, which I want to dedicate one particular port, uplink port to this particular Ethernet adapter for the blade 8 of it. And the rest all, so which I am thinking of basically the rest of this is the same of it. Right. Now let's go to the UCS environment. So each and every blade server requires service profile. That means that we need to define all these particular configuration settings in the service profile, and we have to attach to the blade server. So first I am going to service profile. I am going to create a blade service profile for a blade 7. So I am selecting a create a service profile expert. So I am giving acute len underscore blade 7. So it is asking you what is the UID you want to give. Now as per this blade requirement, what is our requirement here now? From where it has to get? From the UID pool of it. Go to the UID assignment. One is the hardware default name. It is going to take from the manufacturer motherboard. Manual means you have to enter manually specific to this particular service profile or to the blade, or you can take from the pool. Now as we created a UID pool already, so you can just select the UID pool, click on next. So how do you want to configure the storage, local storage? So what is our requirement in the here now? The local hard disk should be configured as RAID 0. So I don't have a policy to create here. Now I'm just creating a storage policy. I'm just selecting called as a RAID 0. So I'm removing the protection of the configuration so that if required I should be able to override the settings. Now I'm saying RAID 0 strike. I'm just configuring next. So now I'm telling that this blade server, whatever the hard disks which are available, that will be configured as a RAID 0 of it. The networking connectivity. So what is our networking connectivity requirement here on the blade 7? How many Ethernet adapters we require here? 2 Ethernet adapters. One Ethernet adapter should connect to the VLAN 2, another Ethernet adapter should connect to the VLAN 3 of the F5A. I'm just simple selecting the expert association. This is the name of the Ethernet adapter. So I'm just giving the name of the Ethernet adapter, so NIC 0. So from where it has to get the MAC address? MAC pool. So I'm just selecting the MAC pool to get the MAC address from the MAC pool. Which VLAN it should part of? VLAN 2, and it should be a native VLAN. I'm selecting the native VLAN. I'm just saying OK. So I'm creating one more Ethernet adapter. What is a NIC 1? MAC address from the MAC pool, and I'm selecting what is a VLAN 3, and I'm just saying partition OK. So click on next. So what is our required from perspective of SAN here now? 2 HBA adapters. One to the vSAN 2, another one is also vSAN 2, and you should get the WNN and WPN from the pool of it. WNN assignment, I'm just selecting that take from the WNN pool, go to the expert. So I'm just going to create an HBA adapter 0, HBA 0, get the WPN from the WPN pool. So I'm just selecting the fabric integrator A, and it's part of the vSAN 2 of it. I'm creating a WW pool again, so HBA adapter, one more HBA adapter 1. I'm selecting the WPN from this one, fabric integrator A. I'm selecting a vSAN ID 2. Now we created 2 HBA adapters as per the requirement, and we mapped them to the vSAN 2, and we took the WNN and WPN from the pool of it. So the next requirement, we don't need any zoning, as we disconnected to the upstream FC switch. So here we don't need, so I'm just leaving the order of the binding of the HBAs. So read media policy will allow you to basically select the ISO image and enable the virtual media. As of now, I don't want to do that. Boot policy. Okay. So what is our boot requirement here now? What is our first boot device? CD-ROM device. Second boot device is your local hard disk. Third boot is your network. So I'm just creating a boot policy. So I'm going to select the first boot device as a CD-ROM drive. Second boot device is the local LAN. And third boot device is your my network. Just say next. Maintenance policy, I don't want to specify any maintenance policy. Now here, assign it to the which server. So I want to assign this particular to the blade server 7, which is my requirement. Now what is the management IP address we want to assign? So we want to assign the management IP address from the IP pool, and just say condition finish. Now the blade server is going to get reconfigured with all these things. Now you look for warnings here and errors over here. So if there is any configuration error and the resources are not available or mismatch in the configuration, then it gives you a warning message here that so the resources are not available, so the configuration is not relevant, so you can just do that. So as of now, I don't have any warnings except that immediate reboot of it. So any of the blade server is not available, I is going to reboot and just say apply the settings. So once you have the service profile created, so go select the service profile. Now here we can see that it is configuration is going on. Now go to the status, FSM status. Here you will be able to see the progress of the update of the config. Now the UCS manager is going to the blade server 7 and reconfiguring the blade 7 as per the parameters which you define in the service profile. Now let's create one more service profile for the blade 8. So I'm just giving acute LAN underscore blade 8. So UID assignment. So I'm just giving it called as acute LAN underscore UID. Local storage. So I'm just giving it called as a RAID 0 again. So as for the blade 8, what is my requirement here now? 2 Ethernet adapters. One Ethernet adapter should connect to the port channel, another Ethernet adapter should connect to the pin group order. I'm just selecting the expert, add Ethernet adapter, I'm just giving the NIC 0, get the MAC address from the MAC pool, part of the called as a port channel of it. So here we don't need that, it will by default is going to be part of the port channel. So here we don't need a pin group, just select this one. So I'm creating one more NIC card, NIC 1. So I want a part of VLAN 82 and make it part of basically part of the pin group, part of the LAN pin group of it. It's VLAN 2, VLAN 3. So I'm just selecting part of the VLAN 3 of it. Just say OK. Go to the next. So here we have an HBA requirement. 2 HBA part of the vSAN 2. So I'm assigning the WDN from the pool. So I'm giving it HBA 0, get from the pool WDPN, and public area vSAN 2. Yeah, vSAN 2 requirement. And one more HBA. Then select the vSAN 2. Then select it. Okay. Then go for next. So I don't need any zoning information. HBA address placement. I don't want any media policy. So I want to create a boot policy. Here my first boot device could be my serial drive, second boot device will be my LAN, and third boot device could be my Ethernet adapter. No maintenance policy. So I want to assign to the blade server called as an 8. Now we are not able to see blade server 7 because already service profile has been associated with the blade 7. As the blade 8 is ID, it is displaying the blade 8 of it. Click on next. Now select the management IP address, what is equivalent pool, and just say what is the permission of it. Now just verify for the errors. As of now we don't see any errors available here, and make a good see that. Now we have two service profiles created and associated with the 2 blade servers. So go to the servers UID pool. Now we see that 001 is being associated with service profile blade underscore 7. 002 is being associated with the blade underscore 8. I'm going to the LAN. MAC address, we see that 00 is being with the blade 7 Ethernet NIC 0, 01 Ethernet NIC 1, 02 blade 8, blade 8 Ethernet 1. Go to the management pool. 8 is being given to the blade 7, 81 is being given to the blade 8. So we don't need to manually configure all these things. Just select from the pool. It is going to take one from the pool of it. Similarly, go to the SAN. See the WLAN pool. Here we see that for all the 4 HV adapters, the ports which have been assigned to this one. Similarly, go to the WLAN pool and initiators, which you will see. Now that is the advantage of creating the service profile and the source pools. Now select the blade server, verify that whether blade server is finished. Now we see that overall status is okay. That means that all the configurations which we specified in the service profile are applied to the blade server. I go to the blade 8. So still the configuration is going on. Now let's see that how to install OS into the blade server. So I'm launching the blade server. Right click and I'm saying what's the KVM console. Go to the virtual media. So once you launch the KVM images, then activate virtual devices. So map the ISO image. Map the CD-ROM drive. Browse. I'm just selecting the VMware ESXi 6.0. Just reset. As we are given the first boot device is a CD-ROM drive, so it's going to boot from the virtual media, or you can press enter into the boot. Press F6 for boot menu. So I'm just selecting the virtual CD-ROM drive which I mapped it. Now we can see it is booting from the ISO image. So from here onwards it is the same like any other server where we are installing it.